Toyah, played by Georgia Taylor, couldn't believe the love of her life, Imran, Charlie D'Amelio, was killed as a result of a car crash they were both involved in earlier this week on Coronation Street. The character spent most of the episode worrying about whether she would get to see Alfie again, knowing full well Abby Franklin, Sally Carmen, could regain custody of her son. However, it seems she should have spent more time worrying about her own future as the police turned up at the end of the latest installment of the ITV soap to interrogate her, as they believe she could have something to do with the tragedy. Since waking up in the hospital, Toyah has had a very sparse memory about what happened in the lead-up to and subsequent drama after the car crash. Originally, she directed the police in Abby and Kevin Webster's Michael Lavelle direction, as she thought they could have tampered with the brakes on the car. Both characters were arrested and questioned by the authorities, but when the analysis came back from forensics, they were let go as there was nothing wrong with the vehicle. This led the detectives to investigate a new angle, being the possibility Toyah could have had something to do with the crash. They believed she discovered the truth about how her husband had set Abby up before the crash, meaning she had the motive to want to kill him. The detective turned up to interview Toyah as she was asked to remember what happened. She told them, "Sorry, my mind keeps drifting." Toyah Battersby, Jane Danson, was trying to avoid her sister being blamed for Imran's death, telling the officer, "She's not up to this." And yet, against medical advice, she is discharging herself, the detective replied, with Leanne adding, "To rest at home, yes. Look, I have already told that other police officer everything I can remember," Toyah said as she finally spoke up for herself. However, the detective wasn't giving up as she added, "Yes, I am aware of that, but I would just like to ask how you and Imran were before the accident. Do you remember talking with Imran before the accident?" the police officer asked, with Toyah acknowledging they did speak. "Can you remember what you were talking about?" the detective asked, with the injured character confirming she could. "Nothing important? Nothing major?" the detective continued as she tried to continue with this line of inquiry, with Toyah as the guilty party. Having had enough, an angry Leanne asked, "Where are you going with this?" The police officer seemed to ignore Leanne as she proceeded to ask, "Were you arguing at the time of the accident? Fighting? Rowing?" "She has just said she can't remember," Leanne exclaimed, with the officer applying the pressure as she added, "You and Imran were arguing before the accident, weren't you?" "No," Toyah finally said, with Leanne still on the defensive as she asked, "Arguing about what?" "We have information to suggest you might have been fighting or you were driving," the detective explained to the injured character. "Well, you're wrong," Toyah remarked, feeling quite irate that she was being blamed for a death she didn't seemingly cause. "What's this got to do with the accident?" Leanne asked, with the detective proceeding to say why Toyah was being questioned. "How well do you know your British soaps? How many times has Ian Beale been married in EastEnders? What is the name of Bianca Jackson and Ricky Butcher's son on EastEnders? On EastEnders in 2002, who accidentally ran Jamie Mitchell over in his car which caused his death? How many times has Corey Steve MacDonald been married? What happened to Emily Bishop in Coronation Street? Who murdered Maxine Peacock in Coronation Street in 2003? Which incident in 1993 killed off 4 characters in Emmerdale? When did the show stop being known as Emmerdale Farm? On what day did Hollyoaks air its first episode? What was the name of the much-loved Coronation Street pet dog who was put down in April 2020 after 14 years? 1996 saw the arrival of one of Hollyoaks' all-time bad boys and rival of Kurt Benson, But who is he? Who is the longest-serving character on Coronation Street? Who shot Phil in EastEnders? How many fires have there been at Corey's Rover's return? Get out of my pub, you're no soaps fan. You're either too young to remember the big lines or have better things to do on weekday evenings. Casual viewer, you watch them sometimes so you kinda know what's been going on. Die-hard fan, you love watching the soaps so much your entire week is planned around when they air. The brakes on the car were working fine. You were speeding along and you made no attempt to apply the brakes, leading to the death of Mr. Habeeb, the detective confirmed. Just before the credits rolled, Toyah looked apprehensive, knowing full well her future as a free woman could be in jeopardy. In the coming weeks, it is likely the police will continue their investigations and Toyah will be their prime suspect. If they and the courts believe she is guilty of causing Imran's death, she could be sentenced to time in prison for her actions. This would lead to Toyah's exit from the show, as it is likely she would be looking at a fair few years living behind bars. The actress who plays Toyah Georgia has recently spoken about wanting her character to change, and being behind Imran's death would certainly change her direction. Speaking on ITV's Lorraine, the soap star said, "I feel there have been times recently when she's potentially been a little bit of a pushover. And I've been reading the scripts going, oh come on. Bring a bit of that Battersby backbone back." However, I do understand that she's had a rough few years, and this longing to be a mother has kind of overtaken everything else, and potentially that sometimes clouds her judgment a bit. So I think that's impacted on a lot of the decisions she's made, she added. But will she be leaving the show very soon?